You're listening to For the Republic, a love letter to Star Wars animation.
Hello there.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to For the Republic, a love letter to Star Wars animation. It is Andrew and Donovan back again, and we apologize for this being a lot later than we expected it to drop. We are finally here, like a month or so after the episode dropped, to talk about the finale of The Bad Batch, because as we are looking, the Acolyte is right there. We are 3 short days away from the Acolyte premiering. We got to talk about the Bad Batch. So we are here to talk about this finale. The Cavalry has arrived. It did indeed arrive, and what a finale it was. Real quickly, just want to apologize for not having an episode out in May because stuff happened.
Stuff happened, yeah.
Stuff happened. You were sick multiple times. I went on vacation. It was just a more jam-packed and hectic month than we were expecting. Just recording this episode alone got delayed so many different times.
Crazy, yeah.
So
we have one thing after the other. It was just nuts.
So a lot of the stuff we plan to get out in May, we will just spread out throughout the coverage of the Acolyte. So we're still going to get to Tales of the Empire. It's just going to be a bit later. We have something planned related to the Phantom Menace and its 25th anniversary. It's going to be a little bit later than we planned. But it is still the year of the 25th anniversary, so that doesn't matter to me, honestly. We'll still be talking about it, and we still have a lot to discuss, and maybe we'll do a big Bad Batch Season 3 episode down the line as well. But, the Acolyte is coming, so I am very excited for that. And also,
we've
Pride
got
Month to everyone. We are recording on June
Pride
1st.
Month, guys.
You're always welcome here. You're always loved. And we aspire to make this podcast and the community that we've built around it a safe community for everyone. It's not the biggest community in the world, but it's the best we can do to ensure that everyone feels welcome. And it's something we're very adamant about. And that's just not me, saying words into a camera. We legit mean that. And there's no place for hate here at For the Republic. So happy Pride Month, everyone. Hope everyone's having a great time. But what were you about to say about the overall season?
Oh, I was going to say that we have to do a season 3 overall summation episode, because it is just going to be 40 minutes of you celebrating that Sid wasn't in Bad Batch season 3.
Oh my goodness. She was not. Woo! Oh man, this was a big victory on my end. I was kind of worried that she was going to show up near the end, especially when they kept alluding to her. The Trandoshan sold out fee, or the Trandoshan gave up this information. I'm like, she's going to show up in the finale, isn't she? But she didn't, so it's okay.
Yeah, and also my constant trolling of you, Sid potentially showing up in the space. I'm really worried I'm going to be accidentally manifesting Sid into the season, and I would really like to not do that, because, the last time someone joked about a character dying or, returning, it didn't end very well, Bad Batch-wise. I'm looking at you, Jared.
Jared, tech is still your fault. I think once this is all done and over with and we do get to that episode, I kind of want to jokingly do, a compilation of all of my Sid rage moments and just put that in the episode, because there's plenty. We did not get my scene I wanted of the Batch just throwing Sid into the Sarlacc pit. But I think what was crazy about this episode was a lot of the, not expectations, but things we were predicting might have happened of, who's going to show up to help the Batch. None of them really came to fruition. But I liked it more because it was all self-contained within the group, and we got to see them go on one last mission together as they break out of Tantiss, and I just thought it was a great finish and conclusion to their story, and I am very excited to talk about it. Before we get into that, briefly want to go over the finals of Glut Madness. This was a little over, I think we announced it on May the 4th, so we're getting close to a month, but we just want to acknowledge it because we haven't acknowledged it on the pod just yet. The winner of our first ever Glut Madness tournament was indeed Depa Balaba. So thank you to Candace from the Geeky Waffle for nominating Depa and for getting it all the way to the finals. The Depa versus Deva finals was something that I was not expecting to happen when we announced these brackets and as we were going, but they kept getting, like, Depa was the unstoppable force in this tournament. So congratulations. And I just want to thank everyone again for all of the engagement and love that you gave to this tournament while it was going on. I was not expecting it to be as much of a success as it was. So for everyone that voted, for everyone that played along and made posts about it and were actively rooting for certain characters and getting campaigns to get them to the next rounds, thank you. It was so much fun. And what do you say we do it again next year? I think that sounds like a good idea. So
I mean, I've already got like 3 people I would want to nominate who are probably going to be better nominations than Fordo. I'm literally
I'm gonna have to see what people think this time for next time, because last time apparently my character wasn't glup enough for some people. So we shall see.
But to be fair, this was in a tournament where Baze Malbus
made it very far in this tournament.
That dude had legs, even though he was like literally like walking like, oh, nothing to see here. I'm totally a glup.
No,
Austin, not a major supporting character.
Definitely not. But next year we will do it again, and I'll have to be very specific to Austin this time to not nominate major supporting characters. But as what is, again, thank you to everyone that shared. Thank you to everyone that helped. Thank you to Katrina Dennis for boosting the tournament after their appearance on our episode. Thank you to Savvy and Mo for being incredible with the support and the promotion they were doing. And again, thank you to all of our friends for helping us out and really making this something special. And now that I have the confidence that this can work, because I didn't when we were putting this together, we're going to make next year's even more fun. So look out for 2025. We're coming back. We're not done yet. One more thing that I want to talk about before we get into, I know you celebrated a birthday since the last time we recorded, and you have some things you want to show off. I do as well, Don. Yes. For the first time in a while, we have a scavenger show and tell.
The garbage will do.
This is a big one. We haven't had one of these in a very long time. For those of you who are unaware, this is a segment I created basically to show off things that I either found in thrift stores or fun little things that fueled my retro collections. But I can talk about new stuff as well. And just basically, it's an excuse for us to show off our new things that we got in our collections, which is a big thing here at the podcast. Very Phantom Menace coded. I did have a decent luck the last time I went thrifting, because the last year, every time I've gone, I haven't found anything. And I found 3 Star Wars books last time. But I didn't want to show them off this time. Instead, I want to show off this because it's a bit more personal. And I think it's something you have in your collection. But I've never had this physically in my collection until now.
Yes! The visual dictionary.
The visual dictionary for the Phantom Menace.
Yes.
And literally, as soon as I got out of my screening of the Phantom Menace, which that is another thing that I've done since our last episode, is I got to see Phantom Menace in the theaters not once but twice, because I, on an instinct after my first showing, was like, I kind of want to see it again, so I did. So
it's just so awesome to see in the big screen.
I'm like, I want to see the pod race scene again. So again, that's what we had to do. But I have such fond memories of when I was younger. The library near my house had this in their section, so I would go through it all the time. But I never owned any of these until now. So I'm like, I had to get it. So I'm just going to pick a random page, flip through it, show off, and what did we get? We got the Naboo pilots, and we got R2-D2. So
My guy, R2.
yeah,
Yes.
again, I love it. I just want to also like point out like this cover. Like we got Maul, we got Jar Jar, we got Padme, important characters. We got Qui-Gon, and then we got Rune Hako. You know the major players of the Phantom Menace.
I don't want this stunted slime in my sight again. Like George basically gave Ian McDermott that line and said, Ian, just cook with this slime, please. There's one of my favorite details about the visual episode 1 visual dictionary is the revelation, the detail that the battle droid's design in universe is based off of Neimoidian skulls. That's like such a, I know it's such a morbid little bit of trivia around like what is otherwise a really goofy character like the battle droid and stuff. But that's an awesome bit of thrift, man. Like I
need to go back and get the newer visual dictionaries because I love them, but like the thing that really got me during the sequel trilogy was the art books. Those were the ones that I collect. I have all of them. I have all the Disney era ones and season 1 of Mando and the High Republic one. So those ones I really love, but like I got to go back and I got to get the visual dictionaries for the newer films, and I want to get the prequel, the rest of the prequels as well because they're fun.
Oh, the Revenge of the Sith one.
The Revenge
of the Sith one is so cool. Yeah, like these visual dictionaries were like a staple for me. Like I grew up collecting them like against the backdrop of the prequels, and I remember a really special moment where I walked into like my local newsagents like around 2015, like a W.H. Smith, and there was a visual dictionary for The Force Awakens sitting on the shelf, and it hit me. There was like a feeling that hit me back then in 2015 of like, oh my God, yeah, Star Wars really is back. There's all the merch and stuff. I remember this, and it just literally took me back to being an 11-year-old kid like in 2005, just seeing all that kind of stuff. It was it's really cool. I also have a piece of I don't know if it's thrift necessarily, but it's a very cool piece of stuff. I have Phantom Menace merch, but I want to save it because I got a lot of cool Star Wars stuff for my my 30th birthday. But this definitely takes the cake. This is I mean, just holding it, I feel the power within. It is the Force FX Obi-Wan Kenobi Black Series lightsaber, and it is a absolute beauty. I am like when I was like just given this, I just was in absolute shock. I was like, and I said, this birthday is just an automatic win now because there is like, I got a lightsaber, and it's just really, really cool. I love. I mean, real fact here, we're both Obi-Wan guys here. We both love Obi-Wan Kenobi. And the lightsaber alone is like definitely has always been one of my favorite designs in the whole franchise. Like, because it's one of the oldest designs. This is like, aside from Anakin's lightsaber in A New Hope, this is one of the first times we see a lightsaber used. And I just love the kind of ergonomic look of it, and it feels good to hold too. Like it's weighted here perfectly, so it actually feels like you're holding something with like mass. But then it's perfectly light here, so you can actually like, because you better believe I went outside when it got dark and just started like twirling this around. You can get a lot of maneuverability out of these things. I have
the Rey Skywalker one on my desk over there. It's just not in the shot, and I love it. It's still one of my favorite ones.
So cool.
I have a replica Kenobi one that I have hanging up. I'm just not a huge fan of the one I have because the blade is a bit too dull, and it's just. I don't know. I'm gonna get a different one in the future.
See, this I believe is from the show.
Is that from the show? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, because the visuals of Ewan McGregor from like the show. But yeah, this is the coolest thing, and you get like a cool little stand with the lighting.
Yeah. They're really nice. Yeah, that is awesome. And I was actually earlier today like, it's been a while. Like maybe I should start saving up for another lightsaber. Because I know the one I want, but I've been holding off on it for a while. I'm like, what good things have been happening lately. Maybe I'll invest in one. So just wanted to show that off. And yeah, let's talk about the Bad Batch. So the one thing that I just want to get off my chest, it's been over a month since we've talked about the show. And I can say confidently that We were all wrong about the fact that we thought some of the members of the batch were going to die because they all lived, and I love it so much.
Yes. Oh, I was like, real talk. I rewatched this episode like a few hours like before we went on, and it hit me like so much more the second time around watching it because like I was almost kind of like taken aback the first time we watched it because we'd been
I was so tense. I was so tense when I watched it.
And that is the thing I was going to say. Like, it is such a it's such a mark of the quality of this episode that, like, even though no one dies, you feel the tension constantly throughout it. Like, I was constantly worried. Like, literally after we did our last episode, and I was saying, "Oh no, yeah, Rekka will be fine." Rekka kind of like resists character development, so I don't see them killing him off. Literally, like one of the first things we see in the episode is Rekka like just holding that like massive gash in his armor.
I was fine. So worried that he wasn't even gonna make it into Tantiss, and that he was gonna go in the forest. I was like, oh dear.
Season 1 all over again, like with him constantly banging his head and like
full
just the
transparency. I have not rewatched it since when it came out, so I am. But the beauty of this finale is it's still so fresh in my mind.
Oh, yeah.
And there's still so many great moments from these episodes. And I feel like, yes, we didn't get Rex back, or we didn't get more explanation into Wolf. But I'm fairly confident that we're going to in the future. Which I guess we can talk about at the end of what we think is going to happen next in terms of Star Wars animation. But everyone that we focused on that was at Tantiss, so the batch, the children, Emerie, Hemlock, Nalase, Rampart, they all got closure. And they all had, in my mind, a very satisfying end to their stories, even though I don't think it's the end for most of these characters that lived. Obviously, it's the end for ones that did not live. But
I can't wait to talk about Rampart. I can't.
Oh man, that was great. And Hemlock, you want to talk about like satisfying like death scene, like villain death scenes? That's one of them.
Oh, they knew that it wouldn't be enough just for him to get popped in the chest once. That bitch needed to take at least 4 or 5 shots before he fell off the balcony, just so we could be like, yeah, get him.
Yeah, I know. So if you want to just get started on whatever the first thing you want to talk about is, go right ahead because you have the most recent watch. And what was the thing like when this episode first kicked in? What stood out to you the most?
One thing that definitely stood out to me the most was the music, for sure, because like the music all season has been fantastic. I really love the Kiners have been just killing it in terms of like the soundtrack and stuff. But there's moments that they obviously bring all the different leitmotifs back. I loved that the clone theme was brought in for the finale, like when all the clone prisoners are freed and Echo gives a rallying speech to them to like just help them save the rest of the Bad Batch. You get hints of the clone theme, and then when Echo leaves to do more, you hear the full clone theme, and it's just very touching moment. The moment I won't like dwell on it too much because obviously we're going to talk about this down the line, but the sequence where the showdown between Crosshair, Hunter, Omega, and Hemlock genuinely moved me to tears because of the music, because that should be such a tense scene, and the music, even before Crosshair takes the shot, is triumphant, because at that point Crosshair has put his trust in Omega, and so the music is like communicating to us that like it's going to be okay. And I just that watching it the second time, that genuinely moved me to tears, just because of the like larger ideas of like family and overcoming trauma and solitude, which has been one of the strongest elements of this season in terms of Crosshair's character and like his bond with Omega and his emergence into the Bad Batch. It's just been really amazing. And the music was absolutely fantastic, especially towards that ending scene, which I don't think either of us were expecting.
No, we were not. again, you brought up Echo. I want to shout out Echo real quick for being the MVP or one of the MVPs of the last.
I have it in my notes. I have it in my notes that Echo was the MVP. He was awesome in this episode.
The end of Into the Breach to Flash Strike with Emerie, and then this, everything he did in this finale was amazing. And again, I was a bit worried that he wasn't going to be one of the characters that got out. But thankfully, I was wrong about not only him, but also Emerie, because I was dead set since the beginning of the season that Hemlock would take her out right as she makes that turn. And thankfully, I was dead wrong there. I'm very, very intrigued about if we do pick up with her character again, how she's going to join up and how she's going to contribute to Rex and Echo's clone resistance. I'm going to be interested in seeing her working to repair the relationship with her brothers and her sister. I'm interested in seeing the characters interact more on a less tense, more friendly terms, where we're not on a giant cloning facility mountain with the spooky Hemlock guy. She's a character I very much want to see more of in the future, and I think we're going to, because I think the Bad Batch season 3 set up a lot of things smartly that I think you can tell in future stories. And I think, well, obviously they did that intentionally, because they've set out right that they, at least with Ventress, that they're going to tell that in the future. Whether that's the next show or not, we know that's happening. But a lot of people seemed to view this season of the Bad Batch as the end of the clone era or the Clone Wars era or the prequel era. I simply don't think that's the case.
Yeah,
people are like, this is the last time we're ever going to see clone troopers. The last time, dude, like, no.
I also disagree with that, because like the way in which the episode ends with Echo, like you literally have Echo taking off. Echo doesn't get the final parting shot with the Batch. The last we see of him, he's flying off to carry on doing like stuff in the galaxy with Rex, like as part of like their insurgent group. So the episode is acknowledging, like, the Batch even like give him a nod as he goes off, like almost like kind of handing the baton off to like whatever the next show is, really, with presumably with Echo and Rex, because I don't think they're done. The next show. Yeah, because like they've got unfinished business, and we obviously still need an explanation of like where Rex winds up, although we don't need it necessarily in the show. It could come in the form of a novel or game or however they choose to tell it. But I don't think this is it for the clones in terms of like narratives. We'll see more clones in Star Wars. This was a conclusion for the Bad Batch, like primarily
for the Bad Batch, and for this era of the Reign of the Empire era. Like, we're obviously going to see more in this area, but like how the episode ends when Tarkin shows back up and we literally see for the first time an Imperial Star Destroyer, like that to me marks a transition of the like after Revenge of the Sith. Like, we still have V-Wings, we still have Venators, like now
Venator class Star Destroyers,
Now we're seeing the Imperial ships, and the next time we see them, we'll see TIE fighters, and we'll see TK troopers eventually into stormtroopers. So
that was an shit moment.
I know. I didn't notice it until I watched Alex Damon's review. They're like, "Oh shit, yeah, that was an Imperial Star Destroyer."
Yeah, because you have the shuttle like just got with the Batch just leave, and then seconds later the Star Destroyers show up, and I was just like, "Oh shit, that's like that's a first for this animation. That's the first time we've seen one of these in animation like that, which is just so cool to see."
Yeah, no, I'm fairly confident that we're going to see more of that. But again, shout out to Emerie for just completely subverting all my expectations and worries that she was going to be a sacrifice and another redemption equals death story in Star Wars. But thankfully now we have 2 for season 3, where with both Crosshair and Emerie, where they did not end up getting redeemed at the cost of their lives. And mainly for Crosshair, thank God. Because
we talk about Crosshair? Because I think we should talk about Crosshair.
I tweeted after like about a week after the Bad Batch finale. One, that the ending is one of my favorite things in all of Star Wars ever, but we'll get into that. And how that just made me sob like a baby. But also, this episode to me officially put both Crosshair and Omega, I believe, in my top 10 of all time Star Wars characters. We were getting very close. It was like it was like all roads lead to the top 10. But I think Crosshair may it's tough. He may have surpassed Rex as my favorite clone character.
Interesting.
It's very close because, again, like I was going to bring up, it's like they're never going to pass up a moment to have more Rex. And I think a lot of, to quickly go back to what we were talking about beforehand, I think a lot of what we were expecting this show to be is going to be more into the next series, where we can have characters like Rex and Echo tackle those things, like Cody's future, or what is the greater clone story besides this select group of characters. If you have Rex in there, you can tell that. Or, obviously, you can have that Ahsoka appearance that they held off on the entirety of this show, which I am still deeply surprised about. The restraint of not putting Ahsoka in there when you very easily could, because at this point in time, she's either about to become Fulcrum or she already is. So
it would have been so easy, pardon me for interrupting, but it would have been so easy to just plug Ahsoka into where Ventress came in. Like, instead of Ventress, Ahsoka shows up to like help them out. But it was a really cool different kind of way of going about it to have Ventress appear. And by not having Ahsoka, you basically don't play into Ahsoka being kind of overexposed as a Star Wars character, because I love Ahsoka. Ahsoka's one of my favorite Star Wars characters. I'll never say no to her showing up, but I also would prefer audiences not to be like sick of her as a character. I'd like everyone to feel the same way I do when I see Ahsoka, which is like, yay, this is cool. I'm happy to see this character, rather than this character again.
Yeah, you're running dangerously close to her becoming like it's this time period, Vader's got to show up, right? Or let's throw Maul in here, like it was like in the mid.
It's like Batman in a DC product, or Wolverine in like circa 2000s. It's like, which I love both of those characters, but I will acknowledge, I've always kind of acknowledged the fact that they are like, they've generally been the ones who tend to hog the spotlight in terms of stuff.
I guess like a very weird metaphor, but you don't want Ahsoka to become like the Stan Lee cameo of Star Wars shows. Like, you want her appearances to mean something. And yes, she very easily could have factored into the Bad Batch. We did see characters very close to her. Bail Organa and Rex both have decent roles in several episodes. But the fact that they didn't, to me, it just shows the restraint of two characters we thought, they'll show Ahsoka and they'll show Boba Fett. And they didn't show either of them. And we didn't get a Vader appearance either. So I guess that's 3.
We didn't.
So
I was so adamant that Vader was going to show up, because I thought, this is going to be a dark ending, and Vader's probably going to show up and like take the batch out, and that's going to be how like the clone resistance gets shattered. But as we just said, it wasn't that kind of story to tell here. This wasn't about the clone resistance fully. I mean, it is about the clones and their self-determination and being able to like finally have the freedom to choose, and then scoring a massively symbolic victory against the Empire in them crippling Tantiss and Palpatine's Project Necromancer, which is like, just in terms of like on a timeline, the way this finale just kind of adds to the overall saga with like, the clones. And the thing I love the most about this is the clones don't even know the intricacies of Project Necromancer and exactly what Palpatine plans to do with it. Just this is a secret plan. They're there to free their brothers. They're there to they're there because of their loyalty to each other. And just through their loyalty, they wind up inadvertently crippling Palpatine's plans, which is just such a perfect bit of karma after the way he used them as pawns, as these like little linchpins in his ultimate plan to take control of the Empire, and the way he kind of like he robbed them of their free will in such a critical moment with Order 66. It's just such a nice roundabout way of storytelling.
I think you hit it right on the head. This whole story was about the clone's ability to choose. their own path. Like you said, Palpatine robbed them of that ability. They had no free will. They had to do Order 66. So to give these clones an opportunity to choose what they want with their life. And we literally see that up until the very end of this episode, where Omega does make that choice to move forward. And it's, again, I love the story they told. I do think that it does feel like a symbolic victory and a symbolic end to this period, but I don't think it's the end of the clones. I don't think this episode, I don't think that's what they were going for, because we still need to, I mean, we still have Emerie and Rex and Echo going out and helping more clones and giving them that choice. And I don't think that we're necessarily done with these characters. I think they're going to show up again in smaller roles down the line, maybe a bigger role for Omega. We'll see. But in terms of a symbolic wrap up of how can you finish this portion of their story, I thought it was beautiful. I don't remember. It might have been Alex Damon again, but it felt less of a goodbye and more of a see you later for a lot of these characters. But
like a see you around kid kind of thing.
Exactly. The moments all hit and they were all great. And I think for this show, this was, and these specific group of characters, this is as close to the best finale we could have asked for. But segueing back into Crosshair, what an episode. And again, we were very worried about what was going to happen to him. Is he going to make it out alive? What was going to be the ultimate thing that, like, the hand tremors were leading to? And to see it happen in this way, oh God, where he loses his hand entirely. And I mean, I'm assuming we'll see him get next time we see him, he'll have a prosthetic hand. But the last time we see him, he's still just rocking with the,
Yeah, well, they bonded that weird kind of, like, you see the droid just like bonding that metal bit onto his arm, I suppose, to like cauterize the wound. But yeah, like that was, I was not expecting him to lose his hand.
No,
and it was such a well done moment.
It just happens so like that, like boom.
It's very Jamie Lannister from Game of Thrones. Like, even the framing of it, like with him having his hand just like stepped on, and like just you could like the shot of him just like, it was the shot when he reached for his hand and he couldn't stop it, and like that the sword was literally like CX2 was literally queuing up the shots, and I just kind of realized what was going to happen. I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
It was such, and we haven't seen a character, like, because we all joked about it, like I think around the time that the sequel trilogy first started, about like, protagonists in Star Wars losing their hands, but this is actually, I think, the first time a character has lost their hand in a Star Wars project since, like, I don't know, like since the original trilogy, in terms, well, the prequel, with Anakin, it would have been so easy to homage that with other characters like Rey or Kylo Ren in the sequels, and they never did that, and it's kind of nuts that we've only just now with the Bad Batch kind of homaged a character losing their hands.
It's been so long since then that we're like, oh my God, like you forget it's a Star Wars trope. And the way, again, it was so sudden, it was so immediate. You barely had time to process what was happening. It's like, boom, he lost his hand. And the fact, it's like, oh, Crosshair's arc this season has been, what am I besides being a soldier? There's that mental block of his aim is going away because of the hand tremor, and he doesn't know what life is besides being a soldier. So the fact that he loses his shooting hand and he's still able to make that shot at the end,
it's so good.
God.
First of all, the line from CX2 is so like perfectly done, and T. Bradley Baker has that like chilling delivery. You should be more careful with your shooting hand. Like this, it was such a chilling moment, and I have to say, I've been kind of holding out with my tech theories for CX2, but yeah, I won't lie. When that scene happened, I was just like, oh. This guy's got to die now. I don't want it to be tech. I want this guy to die after that sequence. And thankfully I was proven right in that regard.
All the CX troopers died. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like all of them, very quickly. I also can't wait to talk about that because that was really cool. But
Mm-hmm.
about Crosshair, like you said, it's been just really fascinating to watch him go through that journey. And then, like, literally, one of the first scenes we have of him, he's looking through the macro electro binoculars, and the hand tremor gets worse to the point where he just is struggling to get it under control. And you have that moment where he just tries to take control and tells tells Hunter and Wrecker to just go and contact Rex and just leave him to infiltrate the base. And there's that moment where he says, I'm doing this alone. It's what I deserve. It's just that just hit me. Both times it just hit me right in the
I was
heart.
like, again, I was like, no, because I was like, I do not want to see you die. I was already worried about Wrecker at that point.
And he invoked Tech's name as well. He said Clone 99 died with Tech, and he just, he basically, it felt like the episode was very keenly aware of what we thought was going to happen going in. Like, we all were thinking some of the batch, some or all of the batch would die apart from Omega, and when Hunter just kind of comes in and goes, "Don't even think about Plan 99, Crosshair." Like, it felt like that was Jennifer Corbett, Brad Rao, and the writers just kind of like communicating to us, "No, we're not going to do that again." Like, yes, this is going to be a tense episode. Yeah.
Real quickly interject, because I saw a few people, mainly the diehard Tech fans, say that they were disappointed with the finale because either Tech wasn't there or they were misinterpreting things as like, that was a tribute to Tech at that moment, where like it really wasn't. This episode had so many like beautiful tributes to Tech's character without needing to bring him back. Like you said, that he died with Tech moment.
I agree.
Having Tech's goggles be with Omega as she leaves at the end of the episode, perfect. Again,
moment,
just little things that were just such homages to Tech's role in the group and him as a character. So him be like, "Oh, Tech wasn't in it. This episode sucks," or like the salute at the end between Hunter and Omega. It's like, that's a Tech thing. It's like, no, that's literally a thing we've seen every Clone Trooper character do. Like, come on now. Like stop making moment. Like, again, there were so many great Tech moments here. Why do you need to make moments that weren't about Tech? I don't get it. Rant over.
Oh no, yeah, no, fair enough. Like, I think anyone who's watched our Bad Batch recaps will know I was one of those people who was kind of holding out and theorizing about CX2 being Tech, but I was mainly doing it in like a fun sense of like, oh, I'd like this in terms of like making things personal for the batch, but it turns out you didn't need that actually, because the writers were confident enough and the story they weaved was personal enough for the batch without needing to include Tech in the story. And what I do like about this, and what really hits me emotionally, like especially after I'd watched the episode for the first time and I was just left to think about it, is that none of this would be possible without Tech's sacrifice.
Nope.
None of it. Tech's sacrifice, like, because at the time when we discussed the season 2 finale, we were like, oh, it was a massive failure. They didn't even get to save Crosshair. Tech's sacrifice literally queued Omega up to go to Tantiss and save Crosshair, because if it hadn't been for Tech's sacrifice, they wouldn't have gone to Ord Mantell. They wouldn't have needed to go to Ord Mantell. Sid wouldn't have turned them in, and Omega wouldn't have wound up on Tantiss, where she found Crosshair and saved him effectively from just this self-hatred, oblivion cycle that he was in. And that in turn led to Omega going back to Tantiss and being confident enough to basically take the industry apart from within, like the whole base apart from within with the Zillo Beast, which was also very cool. But what I like about this is that Tech's sacrifice it's kind of, this reminds me of how Luke's sacrifice in The Last Jedi, Luke's whole thing of showing up at the Battle of Crate. The minute he shows up, the Empire, the First Order loses. Like, they lose symbolically. Like, he restores hope to the galaxy. Everyone fights back against the First Order, and the First Order has to start taking loans from their decrepit Grandpappy Palpatine hiding on his dark planet Exegol. And it's the same here with the Bad Batch. The minute Tech makes that decision to sacrifice himself, it sets the Batch and Hemlock's Empire contingent on Tantiss. It sets them on a course for that showdown, and it makes the scene at the end where they're all sitting together and they've all won and they've completed the mission and they don't need to fight anymore, they have a choice. It makes it all the more poignant that Tech gave his life for that. And then they sum it up very perfectly because, like as I said, going back to that scene, Hunter shoots down Crosshair's like desire, like him trying to sacrifice himself and say, look, we're not doing that. We're going to work as a team. And Wrecker says, we all knew the risks, and so did Tech. Like, it's just such a lovely moment of like brotherhood between the three of them. I love the way Tech's sacrifice played into this without them needing to make it too explicit. And Crosshair's arc throughout the series has been
I love the
fantastic.
fact that we got to the moment where they can have a moment like that again.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Where Crosshair, his redemption felt so and I think it's up. I mean, again, I don't count Vader with redemption arcs of all time because it's like that's the standard. That's what we know.
Like you put it in like for its own little bubble because it's like you grade all the others, like it's the standard by which you judge all the other redemption arcs in Star Wars.
For characters before this, if we talk about characters that were redeemed and got to live after it, it's like Callus was probably like the best we'd had before this of got to live longer and had a story. We're getting more and more now of characters that are able to live longer, but Crosshair to me, it's
Reva and Barriss.
Barriss, yep.
Yeah,
hopefully, hopefully we don't quite know yet.
I cannot believe
that after 11 years of where is Barriss okay? We now have is Barriss okay again? It's just
like Dave Filoni writing those scripts, like literally going like, yeah, no, I'm gonna leave them with this again. They're gonna hate me for it, but
I hope that I kind of just torturously. I hope that's just like the meme. If we get more Barriss stories, is every single time we get another Barriss story, it ends in a ambiguous way where we don't quite know if she's alive or dead or what's going to happen next for her character. And it just keeps going and going and going, for us to be like, we need the answer, and Dave is just not giving it to us.
I'll give you an answer, but you're not going to like it.
Yeah, but again, with both Crosshair and with Tech, I tried to explain this in a weird way a couple episodes ago, but I think now that we've gotten it, I think I'm more relating to it, which is this whole season of seeing the batch live on without Tech. Now that we did get the confirmation that he is not coming back, RIP. But seeing it is if it's like if Rebels got another season after Kanan passed, and we got to see more of the Ghost live life without Kanan, besides from those like 3 or 4 episodes after Jedi Knight in season 4. So it was. I love the little tributes they did with him, and everything about Crosshair's arc is one of my favorite things, I would say, honestly, of the Disney Star Wars era, is getting to see his story from the season 7 episodes of Clone Wars, and to see him, get into the Empire and eventually turn against them and get what I think is still my favorite episode of the whole show with the Outpost, and then this entire season of just consistent great storytelling and continued character development for this character, all the lead up to this just amazing finale, and for him to get that closure, and for him to just, again, that moment at the end was so beautiful, and we'll talk about that in more detail at the end. But again, hats off to Brad Rao and Jennifer Corbett for Crosshair's story, because I love it. Something else I loved just as much, if not maybe more, I'm not sure yet, is Omega's story. Just see her be the ultimate master planner and unleash the freaking Zillo Beast.
Oh, that was so cool.
Great. I love that moment too, when the Zillo Beast pops out. I believe it's before the group even gets in there. It's like, who was that? Was that Omega or was that? And they're all like, Omega. Like they all just agreed.
It's the kind of thing and even Echo's like, yeah, that's what I would do. Like it's just a good, like great little sequence. And again, they kind of like subvert our expectations there because we all assumed that the Zillo would just be wrecking Tantiss the whole time, but the Zillo just like climbs up and just like gets out of there as soon as it
It's
can.
like, all right, peace. I'm gonna go. Chill in the forest.
I'm gonna like create a distraction, but I'm also gonna get out of here because I don't want to be here. But like the whole stuff with the Zillo was really cool. I loved that we got like some of it's like squishing stormtroopers, like TK troopers, and like snacking on them. It was great, and like the climbing up the thing. I feel like there was a bit of a King Kong reference with it climbing the massive like tower area in that room, that huge room, and like getting out of there. And so I guess it's just a kind of like wandering around now, which is both a nice little bit of an ending for it, but that it just gets to live its life in peace, like the Bad Batch. But also, I kind of have to wonder if, like,
every time they go to that planet, they're like, "Oh crap, yeah, there's a Zillo Beast."
Like, well, I could see, like, because Tantiss isn't technically destroyed at the end. It gets messed up a little, but it's just shuttered.
Let me just say though, I was very much expecting when Tarkin showed up, "You may fire when ready." Like I was just expecting it.
Oh, Tarkin could, like, you could see when Tarkin contacted Hemlock, he could not wait to like just swoop in and take over. He's like, "You can expect my arrival imminently." Like, I was like, you little shit, Tarkin. Like, he's just
all the resources to Project Stardust, and we're all just
like,
he's done it.
Like, but again, it just shows the Empire's like infighting and how that's their undoing, because it's like this was Palpatine's big master plan, and the resources are taken away to give to the Death Star, which basically, aside from destroying Alderaan, all that does is like galvanize the galaxy even more against the Empire. So it's literally, again, they are now even more undoing. They're on the march. They're on the march to their own destruction, which is just it adds. It's a little bit of light against the backdrop of darkness that is this era of Star Wars with the Empire. But yeah, the Zillo Beast scene was really cool. I loved Omega like working with the kids and like helping them out. The bit with the little baby alien crying and then snoozing immediately when the carnage time.
You're sleeping during this.
Yeah. Like this calms him down. Ugh, like, yeah, and the other child as well, like the young boy who had the issue with heights. That was also a lovely scene as well, of like him saying, "I guess that means I'm not a good soldier." And Omega's like, "No, my brother Wrecker hates heights, and he's one of the best, strongest soldiers I know." Like, that's such a lovely thing, and it's such a cool kind of message to kids as well. That, like, you don't, even if you're scared of things, it doesn't mean you can't be whatever you want to be, whatever you choose to be. You can be what you want to be, regardless of your fears, because you can still overcome those. And that's what Wrecker has done every time he's had to deal with heights. He's never been like so scared that he can't do it. He's scared and it unnerves him, but he gets on with it because he has the support of his brothers. And that is, I think, one of the stronger elements of this episode. It's what I was sort of trying to like get to with Crosshair, where we discussed him, is that everything Crosshair achieves in this episode, like when he defeats CX2, when he gets the shot off, it's all done together with the rest of the badge. It's he takes out CX2 with Hunter, and he takes the shot that he does with the help of Omega and Hunter. Hunter tells him to take the shot, and Omega lines it up for him with her neat little shank stick. It's a lovely little expression of like family, and how, despite what Crosshair has believed, because Crosshair's whole thing has been that he shirks connections and he's caustic to everyone around him because he's a sniper and he views everything else as a distraction. He prioritized his skill set above everything else because he believed he had to be cold and clinical in order to have the focus to get off the kind of amazing shots that you see him get off throughout the show and in Clone Wars. But after we see him just thoroughly kind of get like shaken down, like over the course of the series, like we see him just be on his own, gradually losing any kind of connections he has, like the Batch, Cody, and even his brief friendship with Mayday. Like, you see him start to realize in the absence of these bonds how important they were to him and how he took his brothers for granted. And it's only when they're gone and he has to recognize that it's like he can't ignore that anymore. And so that is kind of what part of what manifests the hand tremors. Really, obviously, there's the trauma of being tortured at Tantiss, but the hand tremors are a part of his growing worry that because he's feeling more, he can't be he can't be the soldier that he was. And like you said, him losing his hand and still getting off that amazing shot with no scope. He no scoped that shit. Like it was just it was very impressive. As we'd been saying, we were hoping he would get off like an amazing shot, and he did. The fact that he did that after losing his hand demonstrates that, you know, the bonds of family do not make him any less of a soldier. They do not make him any less. They aren't a weakness to be exploited. They are a strength. They are a strength because if you trust in the people who love you and care for you, and they trust in you, you can overcome anything. And that's probably why that moved me to tears so much, because of the fact that in that scene he puts his trust in Omega to like line the shot up for him, which she does. And he does it, and it just makes that reunion when she hugs both of them on the bridge just
when
like
she
so
hugs
awesome.
Crosshair first, I was like, oh my goodness, it got me.
Yeah,
that
it's
whole
just
thing
it's
was beautiful.
Beautiful moment, and yeah, just in terms of like a pure action thing, just seeing Hemlock get like 4 or 5 shots to the chest before like falling off the bridge, that was great. I loved that.
Oh, he was just seeing him go on like full villain meltdown in this episode.
Drop the blasters.
Like everything was beautiful. It was a beautifully just wonderful end to his character, and I think there was no other way that this character could have gone out than just in the most like violent, alone, just ultimately like fist pump in the air, satisfying death. Because
like,
he was just one of the slimiest, love to hate, creepiest Star Wars villains we've ever had. And again, just the ending was just about perfect for me of how he went out. And again, I was worried, but at the end I was like, okay, well he's got to die. And oh boy, did he.
Oh, he did. It was a satisfying death, I'll say. Like he literally, at the start of the episode, he's so secure in his power, and he has that brief scene with Rampart, which was really cool that they got an interaction before both biting the dust. And we see kind of like the difference between them, that he believes he understands the clones to the point where he can outpace them tactically and psychologically, and Rampart just doesn't care. And they both view that as a strength, and they're both wrong about it. Like, and that's what's really cool, because Hemlock thinks that because he's smart and he knows things that others don't, and he pays attention to the stuff the other Imperials like Rampart take for granted, that makes him special to the Empire. And it doesn't. He is, at the end of the day, he dies alone on a walkway, completely stripped of all of his resources, with no help, because he is just as indispensable. He's just as dispensable to the Empire as Rampart turns out to have been.
The only person that isn't expendable in the Empire is Palpatine.
Is the one at the top. Exactly.
We see more of these Imperials realize it, and every single time it's like, yeah, fuck yeah, good.
Yeah,
good.
Speaking of Rampart,
speaking of characters that die. Oh boy, was I wrong about this guy.
I wish I'd stuck with my first theory that he would die, because I would have been spot. I mean, I was sort of right, because he did try to supplant Hemlock, but it just literally blew up in his face in the best possible way.
Nope, no, he did not. Because we see Nala say, which we got some closure for her, which I liked, because I was like, how are you going to fit this in? And they still managed to do that. Or if she's trying to destroy all of her research, and Rampart shows up with the gun, and it's like, nope. Yeah. And then she pulls out the grenade or the thermal detonator, and kablooey. It was so great.
That he shot her thinking he was like thinking he could do what he did in season 2, where he shot that clone commander.
Yep.
Yeah, and then the detonator just rolls over, and he has the best oh shit face ever. Like, just before it explodes, it was literally at this moment he knew he screwed up. But yeah, I wasn't expecting Rampart to show up again, and I
No.
love that we got a little mini exploration of him, and he was like the anti-Callus because he was so unlikable in a lot of the early series, and it was oddly more fun to watch, like being on the outs with the Empire in this like really like fractious relation dynamic with the Bad Batch. It was kind
he
of
was
awesome.
still an asshole, but it was like still like it was like funny this time around.
And that's what's great is that against the backdrop of like redemptions like Emerie and Crosshair, we have characters like Rampart who demonstrate that, you know, it's very hard to redeem yourself because you have to actually earn it. You have to actually want to do it. And Rampart doesn't. Rampart only desired his station back, and you can see that the whole way through. They really primed us for him to like go out in a satisfying way, and he really did. It was such a cool moment. It was such a great moment. I laughed out loud when it happened because I was like, "Oh, you really thought you were about to do something."
And to have Nala say like go out with purpose too, of like sacrificing herself to make sure this research doesn't continue and to make sure Project Necromancer is fully crippled and helping Omega out still in her last moment, I thought was great. And as someone who has just never really liked her character at all, I was still like, you know what? Good for you, Nala Say.
You're a G there, Nala Say.
Exactly.
Yeah, like I loved the line that she said to Rampart where she was like, you know, my work will never belong to the Empire. It will always be Kaminoan. I like Gwendolyn Yo's delivery, like that slightly detached delivery with the Kaminoan speak. It's really cool, and it's like a symbolic victory for the Kaminoans after they were again. Their technology was used by Palpatine, by the nascent Empire, and just then they were cast aside the minute that they were deemed no longer useful, and they get a little bit of revenge in a way, a little bit of symbolic karma against the Empire with Nala Se destroying her research and crippling Project Necromancer. That was really cool. That was really cool.
It was a nice moment. So speaking of, again, going back to Hemlock, his big plan for the batch was commissioning and activating more of these CX troopers, and we get to see them very much mirror the batch in a way, overpower them. We get the bigger one, we get one that's like Hunter, we get
the one with the two swords, and they're like the spear and stuff. They were really well designed,
and
it says a lot about the episode.
They worked well as intimidating villains.
Yes,
and I was very worried that one of them was going to go out at this moment, like whether it's Hunter or Echo or Crosshair. Wrecker, when he was throwing stuff, I'm like, oh, but he's still got the wound. Like, is he?
Oh, the shot when he broke out of the thing, it was really cool. But the shot where he just like stood up and he was like, ugh, like that, like just I was really worried about him. I was like, oh no. He's
and when they were getting
more and more hurt,
tortured too, I was like, oh no.
The little smile on Hemlock's face.
So terrified the whole time.
He's such a slimy villain, like you said, like was smiling when they're getting like the conditioning happen, and like when he releases his patented gas into like the chamber below with where the troopers and Echo are. Like that was he's a slimy villain. It was great that he got his his comeuppance. But the CX troopers, they were really well designed, and again, it's a mark of quality for the episode that like, you know, even though they were very briefly here, with the exception of CX2, they were really threatening. They felt really intimidating, and the cool little like ominous leitmotif that they had, I really liked it. I I almost wish they'd appeared earlier in the season so we could keep getting that leitmotif, because it's genuinely unnerving as a piece of music. But the fights were really cool because the batch but it also did, like we said, tee Echo up to be the MVP of the episode, because my God, how much of a badass he was. Like we had that very tense scene, as you said, where they took the batch out and Crosshair loses his hand, and Echo literally sees all three of them carted off by these CX troopers, and he just says to Emerie, I can handle them. And it's like, I was like, yeah, no, he really can as well. Like you see why he earned the title Arc Trooper, and why and how he is just as capable, if not more so, than the rest of the batch, like in his fighting skills. Because like he doesn't even have his gear; he just has like the the TK trooper armor, and he pretty much like takes out like 2 or 3 of those CX troopers with Wrecker's help. Like I love the bit where Wrecker just like body slams the big one like right through the window and just like roars. It's like, oh, that was so cool.
Yeah, and then one, I don't remember which one was it CX2 that was taken out with the spear?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, like because he's trying to get the drop on Hunter, and then Crosshair just like kicks him into view, and Hunter just like javelins it right through his chest, like it's just perfect.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh, I guess.
Yeah,
I was like, literally that second, I was like, oh yeah, there go all the tech theories.
Yeah. So one of the things that we can admit to is when we're wrong, and we spent a large portion of our recaps this season talking about who's CX2 gonna be. Is it Tech? Is it Cody? Is it this character? Is it a Crosshair clone? Who is it? Like what is the importance going to be important? And so this was so this was us for the last 4 months. This is now twice in the last calendar year where Star Wars Show has had us debating on who a character really is, and it turns out they're no one. First it was Marok, now it was this, and it makes me kind of glad that we were unable to cover Ahsoka weekly, because we would have done the exact same shit that we did here. And here we are, and the one of them gets revealed is just a bog standard reg. And
I mean,
I'm like,
and I suppose
shit.
That's the point at the end of the day. Like that is the point. Like we all talked about that, but it really would have, the more I think about it, like having had time to process it, it would have taken away from what the point of these troopers is. The point of them is they are completely without humanity. They are completely stripped of all of that. And to have them be a clone we recognize.
They are what the Batch aren't.
Yes, they are, because the Batch the Batch are who they are because they fight to maintain their personalities, their what makes them who they are. And the CX troopers are terrifying because they are completely stripped of that. They are, in respects, what a lot of us thought that the clones kind of were in the prequels, potentially. Like, and I've talked about this before, where I feel like
inhibitor chip.
Yeah, like where it seemed that it's essentially biological machines that just coldly do whatever they're told by whoever is in control of them. And I think that is definitely something. I think that was the intention initially with how George was kind of like constructing the narrative, and maybe that changed along the way, especially when like they were just, because I don't think the inhibitor chip was always the end game for the clones. I think it's just something that developed naturally as the series went along, where like Filoni and the story team were like trying to work it out, and the more the stories just naturally presented themselves, like the episode with Cutler Quain, the episode on the Umbara arc, the Rookies stories that go through the Clone Wars, it just naturally kind of became clear that you couldn't really have them just like turn on the Jedi without a concrete explanation of like brainwashing or something, because it just doesn't, it kind of betrays a lot of the good storytelling and character that went into those episodes. And it again sets us up with these CX troopers who are these like terrifying, like just blank slates, who do nothing but kill. Like we all thought CX2 was just like, I thought CX2 wasn't going to appear again, and he just went. It turns out he just went back into his pod. He doesn't have a life. He doesn't have anything. He does his missions. He does his shit, and then he just goes back into his pod to cool off. It's very Winter Soldier esque with the brainwashing, but it's also like. It rhymes very well with like what the clones have been kind of fighting for the whole time, and so it gives each of their dispatching kind of like some weight.
And we see that in the episode of Hemlock trying to turn the 3 of them into CX operatives. So to see them not only escape that, but beat the thing that Hemlock created to destroy them was a great conclusion. And then, you know what, we joke about it and we're like, yeah, man, that would have been a cool emotional moment. But for the story that we're telling, I'm fine that they were no one, honestly. Like, yeah, it did seem like they were hinting that this was going to be a big reveal for how much they focused on CX2 in particular. But now it just looks like, okay, well, this is just how like much of a problem and how like gruesome these CX clones are, that they're able to withhold that much, and they're able to deal that much damage and be that much of a threat. And it's also very even more than satisfying to see them all get taken out like they were. I thought it led to a great moment. And another character we lost that I did see some people, specifically some Legends fans, upset about was your good old buddy Scorch.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about that? I saw some people say, like, if they were just going to include him just for him to die, like they should have just used a different character. What are your
honestly?
Were you a little upset there as a Republic Commando guy?
I wasn't like upset necessarily, because at the end of the day, he wasn't a massive presence in the story, and it did. I was wondering when that was going to happen, and the more it wasn't happening, I did just kind of go, yeah, he's probably going to get killed off with Moff Gideon, and say that, we technically didn't see a body, and yes, even though he got shot several times, that armor is really tough. Like, Gregor got shot twice in the chest with that thing and was fine. He was just a little winded. So I could maybe see them like retconning it so that he survives like down the line if they want to do more with the Republic Commandos. But honestly, if I'm going to put my critical hat on it right here, I do think it was an odd decision to put him in the story, because he doesn't really, like, in terms of character, personality wise, he doesn't. From what I'm aware, he doesn't really resemble Scorch in the game or the novels. Because Scorch is a much more lighthearted character, and he is just kind of like a bog standard Imperial commando, just very kind of like to the point and loyally serving Rampart with no Hemlock with no real personality. So I do kind of I'm kind of left to question, like, was it necessary to include him, or could you have maybe just like put a new clone commando in here, like you did with Gregor in season 5 of Clone Wars, and just, have this original character do all that? Because it does at the end of the day just feel like a reference for Legends fans, as opposed to like, oh, we're gonna include this character here because he's gonna bring something to the story, and it just didn't really do that. It really was just a reference. So I'm a little critical of that, because I think you just, by including him without giving him much of a character in the story, and then just killing him off very unceremoniously with like Hunter and Crosshair just like popping him the minute they arrive on the walkway, it's unnecessary in terms of like just provoking like upset amongst Legends fans, because not all Legends fans, like, that's the trick we miss with like a lot of like online grifter shit with like they love to, those kind of people love to pretend that they're Legends fans and try and claim like, oh, that's the real Star Wars, all the other stuff is fake, and because they almost want to turn people against like Legends stuff, but that's a whole other thing. It's just an unnecessary it felt unnecessary.
Like, to me, when I saw that, I was like, okay, well, they really just brought him in without like having a plan for him. Like, that's a name people will know, throw him in there. And it's like, again, I think this is different from, oh, they changed it, so that's not canon. This is like, I would, like, if I would, again, I've never played Republic Commando or read the books, so I don't have a huge connection to Delta Squadron. However, if I did and I saw that, I'd be like, I would be a little bit, not like mad, but like, well, that kind of sucks. Like,
exactly.
I was hoping for a bit more.
It's this passive thing. I feel really where, like, because I've not read the novels, but I have played the game, and like, I can't feel mad about Scorch being killed off, air quotes, because he's not really a character here. He's a reference, so I can't. There's not really much for me to get mad at. But it just leads me to question: would it not have been better served just having an original clone commando like with Gregor? Because I'd have been happy for that. We aren't hurting for like, they have a really good track record, these shows, of like introducing new clones, like with Mayday.
We got plenty of original clones in this show, in this season, with Rex's group. So if they just like, oh, here's insert bad clone commando here, we'd be like, all right,
give him like a purposely evil name too. Like give him a name that like means like a lapdog or something like that. That would be fun.
Give him a Decepticon name. This is
yeah,
and we'd be like, all right, cool. Yeah.
Commander Mirage or something like that. That'd be good. Yeah, yeah. That's my overall take on Scorch. It's like, yeah, it could have been better, but you know, he served his purpose, I suppose, as like
You're
as
gonna
a
have
right hand man.
clones that like won't break the brainwashing of the chip, and
Oh
Scorch
yeah,
was one of them, and it would like it is something of importance to like give us a name of like, oh well, here's a character that like didn't. It's like Wolf got out, Cody got out, Rex got out, Scorch he didn't. So that I understand why they did it, but for fans that again, it's like, oh, they were upset that he went out and we didn't get any other Delta Squad stuff. Like we were,
yeah.
I mean, kind of like pipe dream stuff. Like, oh, maybe they'll show up and fight the Batch in this episode.
Yeah, I
Like
mean
that would have been
that was
cool.
immediately when he
Mhm.
showed up in season 1. That was my immediate assumption. So I think it's valid for like any Legends fans to, like if it upset them, I think that's a valid response. You know, obviously don't be a jerk and harass anyone about it because it is
No.
at the end of the day just a show. But like I understand why some fans are upset about that because it was at the end of the day just a reference and including him and saying things like, oh, you know, it's purposeful. It does kind of mislead people to expect that you're going to do more with it than you actually did, which is like that's not a mark against the finale so much as it is just like a potentially a little criticism of like the show overall choosing to include that character because you know at the end of the day the finale like was very economical with how it chose to deal with so much and give everything some time for you to absorb stuff, which is like
Mhm.
I just really like how this is honestly one of the strongest finales we've had for a Star Wars show.
Oh,
Like,
100% is.
yeah, like it's
I
just
don't I don't quite know if I'm ranking it ahead. If I'm just going like straight up series finales, then I'll just keep it to animation because we haven't gotten one. Like the only one that we know for sure right now, that's the end of the series is Book of Boba Fett, which is difficult because it's attached to
yeah,
Greater Mandiverse
it
and
didn't really
Kenobi,
have an
which is
ending. Yeah, yeah, because
such
Kenobi had
it's
more of an
yeah,
ending
it had
because you
more of
had
an
that.
ending, but it's such its own thing. So it's like that's again, I don't. It's the only like straight up finale, and even then they're like pushing for another season. So we don't quite
Please
know yet. But like
listen to you and make another show. I
if
want to see
I'm
more
just
of you. And
going if I'm just
come
going
on,
animation, I don't quite know if I'm ranking this ahead of Rebels or Clone Wars in terms of just their last episode just
it's
yet.
weird, isn't it?
But
Because
it
like
is so
it's
damn
like
good.
yeah, and this is the thing one of the things I immediately wanted to talk about like after seeing it the first time is that it was almost kind of like I had to almost like reprogram myself like unlearn some things like
Mhm.
after watching the episode because I was kind of like I was having to process a lot like going into it because as we had been speculating for so long about like how this would end in a darker fashion, how there'd be character deaths and sacrifice and that kind of thing, and it's like that's not what just because this is the dark like obviously this is probably the darkest of the animated Star
Oh
Wars
no, it
shows
is.
like
It
like
is.
compared to Clone Wars and Rebels had their moments of darkness but there was always these bits of levity. Bad Batch is easily the darkest of the shows in terms of how it chooses to focus on the Empire and like some of the actions and decisions that are made by the villains, but having it have this optimistic ending, this happy ending where the characters all get to live. We get to see them all live, and they get to choose their own fate. It's a lovely. It earns that optimistic ending, that happy ending for the characters, and also it does also make me laugh a little bit because we as Star Wars fans are so programmed to expect a bittersweet ending.
Yep.
In the wake, because like you and I, we grew up against the backdrop of the prequel trilogy. Like we haven't really had a fully happy ending to a Star Wars
Return
story
of the
since
Jedi.
Return of the Jedi.
Yep.
Yeah, because like even Rise of Skywalker is like, yes, it's technically a happy ending because the characters defeat the First Order and the galaxy celebrates, but we never really get the sense of that in the way that we do in Return of the Jedi, the overt celebration, because the scene that ends the series is this more kind of muted scene on Tatooine, which, you know, there's not a Rise of Skywalker episode, but
Yeah, and like
this
we get Ben Solo's death like 3 minutes before the movie ends, so it's like we're like, oh yeah, that's sad. All right, ending. It's like
ow.
yeah, it's like you get that celebration, but it doesn't it's not the same feeling as you get
Yeah.
watching the ending of Return of the Jedi. And again, this is not a critique of Rise of Skywalker. We can do that another time. It's just saying like pure happy endings. It's like Phantom Menace, kind of, but it's like watching it back now, you're like, well, no, Palpatine won. Like that's
you're all celebrating, but the bad guy won. Really, like he's
since that David Collins panel at Celebration, I'm like, I cannot watch that scene any other way as
because of the Palpatine theme.
Palpatine won. Yeah, it's like so you get that, and then Revenge of the Sith was you get that moment of hope, but it's so bittersweet.
It's
and
such a downer ending.
Force Awakens,
of, like, everything that happens
again, uplifting ending, but it's like we lost Han. TLJ, uplifting ending. We lost Luke. The Resistance is in shambles. What's going to happen? And then getting like Rebels, which we lost Ezra, and then Clone Wars was, oh my God. So it's like, to get a happy ending.
Yes.
Where, yes, we do get a goodbye, but it's like, it's a tears of joy kind of thing. I was sad, but I mean, it was a good sad. It wasn't like this character died kind of thing. I will say this: it's the most terrified I've been watching a series finale, and this includes Clone Wars. Because Clone Wars was such a punch to the heart, but I knew Rex and Ahsoka were going to make it. Yeah. And yes, we did lose all the other clones, and that was just it killed me. But
Jesse's helmet on the stick is just like,
oh my God. But like you had you knew those characters were going to make it out. So you at least had that. Rebels for me probably would have killed me if I watched it as it was coming out, but I watched the entirety of Rebels after the series had finished airing. So I knew what was going to happen with these characters. So I was like, it got me, but it was, again, I've gone on record as saying Kanan's death made me just full on ugly cry for 15 minutes straight, even though I knew it was going to happen because I had known about the episode for 2 years and what happened.
I mean, again, the music.
Yep. And again, if I watched that live, I'd be like, oh my God, Ezra, I'm dying here. But this, I was like physically, like I felt like I was shaking at points because I was so nervous that we were going to lose some of these characters because we have no idea. No idea what's going to happen with the majority. The only ones we know make it further is Rex, and he wasn't in this episode. So it was all like everything here is fair game.
Like sorry, yeah.
I was just like, we could lose these characters, we could keep them. It's like we don't know what's going to happen. Yeah, and we haven't had an episode with those kind of stakes in a very long time.
Exactly. So, like I generally resist the critique of like people saying, oh, why are they doing this like prequel story or interstitial story? We know these characters are fine. You can get tension out of those kind of stories, like whatever, because you can make the audience forget that they're watching a prequel or an interstitial story if the stakes are good, if the tension is good. And also,
like, the quality of a story doesn't solely rely on does the character die.
Yeah,
like we need to get past that.
We do as in terms of storytelling, because if your immediate reaction to like a prequel is, oh, this character I know this character died, so what's the point? It's like, it's life, like character development and characters watching stories. It's not just about seeing who lives and dies. It's about watching a character go through an arc and a story and a progression, and experiencing growth vicariously through those characters. It's much more like, there's so many more layers to it than like if a character lives or dies. But as you said, this was very refreshing because we saw stakes in a way that we haven't with the match.
Even with we said earlier about, we didn't have Rex and we didn't have this giant clone battle that would have upped the stakes. The stakes still felt very huge and very real, even though it was contained to this specific group of characters, which to me showed the great quality of this episode and the great quality of this finale. And the fact that we grew to care about these characters so much over the course of this series, to where some of us, when the show was first announced, were like, the Bad Batch, really? Like, it feels like you could only get so far with development for these characters. And the
I was
fact
one of
that
those
3
people.
seasons later, we are eating our words and we're like, I do not want to see these characters
I
go.
know, like,
It's
because I thought it was going to be. I thought like they were going to make a video game or something out of those characters because I was like, oh, you got the sniper, you got
that would
the
be
tech
so cool.
person. Honestly, I would still love a Bad Batch video game. You could absolutely get a whole game out of that. Like maybe Tech has to like slice into a thing and they protect him or whatever. But like you could have done that. But like the animated show. And at the end of the day, like the thing that we weren't aware of that was going to play a big role in the series was Omega. Omega is literally, and this is I think why Omega is such a great character, is that she is this kind of positive force.
Oh yeah.
No pun intended, but she basically throughout the whole show she changes each of the characters for the better. Like the Batch take on more dimensionality the more time they spend with her. Like every character, it shows that they are markedly improved by their time with Omega. Like even the characters who still make bad decisions, like Sid. It's a mark of failure. It's a mark of failure for that character because they spent time with Omega and they didn't take the opportunity to change themselves for the better. Like Omega is this fantastic like character who's been just had this. She's not changed so much like necessarily. She's not had to like learn. She's had to like become more capable as the series goes along. But what's nice is that the show has never punished her for having an optimistic view of people, for wanting to help people, for being compassionate towards others. And considering the era it takes place in, when the cruelty and the cruelty and coldness of the Empire reigns supreme, it's such a great light again against the backdrop of darkness to have Omega be this truly compassionate soul who doesn't judge anyone and endeavors to help people be the best version of themselves they can be. You see that with the kids mirror her experiences with the Batch. There's 3 of them, just like there were 3 of the Batch who initially went on adventures with her, and she well, there's actually 4 of them, sorry, there's 4 of them, and each of them they don't mirror the Batch necessarily through character, but her time with them, she brings out the best in them. They're all helpless kids who couldn't have possibly escaped on their own, but the minute that she gets there and she talks to them, she gives them all the confidence to like overcome any odds, basically. Like we almost missed like how that Dr. Scolder is just like immediately taken out by that droid, which is just a really fun sequence.
Yeah.
That was great. I love
they
that.
reprogrammed the nanny droid. That was fun.
She was literally in the middle of just haughtily saying, "Oh yes, Dr. Carr has been too harsh, has been too lenient with you. I'm going to be more harsh with you." Oh no, I'm knocked out.
Yeah, no, that was really fun. And again, to go further on her development, to go from like the first bit of season 1 and into season 2 where Hunter was like, "Nope, you can't come on the mission. We're too worried about you," to her literally leading this escape and this operation and
Yeah.
bringing out the freaking goddamn Zillo Beast.
Oh, it's so good.
Character development. I've gotten to the point with Omega.
Question.
Yep, nope.
Sorry, I was just going to interject. Omega
Yeah,
doesn't even like Echo doesn't even question taking her with him. It's just a given that she will go with him because she has proven herself so much as a soldier and a tactician at this point. And I love their reunion, incidentally, like causing chaos, Evoc 5. Like it's great. But yeah, like as you were saying.
Well, I was just gonna say I've gotten to the point where like if you don't like Omega, I have trouble judging your like of characters.
Yeah, I'm with you there, buddy.
Because she's just, I don't see how you can dislike this character. And again, there's like having like cute kid characters. They can be annoying at points, and they can be like they can drag shows down. But Omega is the complete opposite of that. She makes the show. She is the heart of this show, and her relationship with these characters and with her brothers is what it's what literally drives the narrative for this show. You have all of this, and you have how much they care about her, driving them to go to Tantiss and have this huge mission and these huge stakes. They do all this to get her back. And again, I don't get how you can dislike her. And I love that choice. Again, we glossed over it earlier, but how she chooses to stay on Tantiss after Emerie leaves with the kids and gets them to safety, because she needs to be back with her brothers and she needs to help them. I love that, and it just shows the growth of her character over the series. Again, I was a bit worried, I will say, because at this point, I still was not fully I didn't fully believe that Emerie was 100% on their side at this point. So I was very worried that she was going to take the kids and then, like, go off somewhere else completely different.
Oh, I thought the shuttle was going to get destroyed for a second. Like, they were going to, like, shoot it down.
That would.
And I was so relieved. I was like, I breathed a little sigh of relief. I was like,
I died.
I know. I was like, oh, phew. This isn't a prequel story. There's no Anakin involved.
I'm very glad I was wrong on everything with that. But again, that moment we have of Hemlock being defeated and them back on Pabu, it was beautiful. It really was.
Perfect shot of them all just sitting by the tree.
That is again. I said on Twitter, it's one of my favorite Star Wars shots of all time.
So good.
Think like in the days after this episode came out, I talked about this, and I mean it. There was a point, I believe either the day or the day after I watched the episode, where I was at work, and literally just the thought of this scene popped in my head, and it got me to start like choking up at work while I was talking to a client. And I'm like, crap. There's a chance if we recorded this episode like when we were going to the week it came out, that I would have cried on air talking about this scene. It means so much to me. Getting this moment, it's so beautiful. Getting Batcher back again. I made a comment last week, like, where the hell is Batcher? Like, they just kind of left him on Pabu. Is that the last we're ever going to see him? See her.
Told you we should have brought Batcher.
Getting her back, I loved, and seeing them all just there sitting by the tree, just looking on and like pondering, what that next choice is going to be, and the fact that they all have that choice and they're all together. And it would have been great if Echo was still there, but Echo's story isn't over yet. But this was like the perfect shot to me of like, okay, this moment for Clone Force 99, it's like that this is a nice like bow to put on top of their story, and I loved it. And the edits I've seen, bringing Tech back, but the edits I've seen of him like as a Force Ghost, like besides them, I'm like,
I need to see those. Those are gonna make me. There's probably gonna get some tears like flowing again.
And I love it. And it's like, if the episode ended there, I'd be like, that's one of the best episodes of Star Wars TV we've ever had. I'm like, I love that. And then it doesn't end. And
like
an epilogue.
And I was like, who's this? Who's this mysterious character like walking towards that cave where Ventress was? And I didn't clock it until she turned the light on and we saw that it was Omega all grown up. And I gasped. I was like, oh my god, they've jumped. They've actually, because I joked about them doing a tease of Omega like fully grown up as a teenager, like or a young adult, going off to help, like going off and having quests of her own, but like I didn't think they'd actually do it. And I just loved the way they chose to go about this, like with Hunter in like his dad mode with his beard and just like his like chill outfit with Batch with his dog, just like waving Omega off, just fully admitting he's not ready for this, but he accepts that Omega is ready to like go off on her own and have adventures and be part of the rebellion.
Be part of the rebellion.
There is a very good chance that Omega has met Luke Skywalker, and there's that Rex and Luke have shared a scene together. Like, obviously, we'll talk a bit about this more when we
I just thought of something morbid. I'm so sorry, But the first thought that went in my head when you said Luke Skywalker, I was like, "There's a good chance Omega died in the Battle of Scarif." I'm like, "No! Get that thought out of my
You
mind
take that
right
back.
now."
You
Why
take
was it
that
the
back
first
right
thing I
now.
thought of? Why was it the first thing I thought of?
Now I know how you felt when I made that intrusive thought joke about Nemec being everyone's secret crush. I feel like, oh no.
I was like, why is Rogue One the very first thing that pops in my head? Because I was like, oh, this has to be close to A New Hope, right?
She could have
'cause we
fought
don't-
in the Battle of Scarif. Yeah, like I feel like this is right before, because it's like what, 10 years, I think. Because this is like, I think only a year has passed overall by the end of like pre flash forward. I think only a year had passed. So
I believe like a year, maybe a little more than a year.
I mean, it's
since
either
Revenge of the Sith.
15 years. It could be like either 50. I think probably gearing up. It's probably maybe Andor season 2 adjacent, which, you know, potentially Omega could show up there. I don't think she will. I would imagine.
I think the beginning of season 3, it was like a 4 or 5 month time jump.
Yes, yeah,
and there was definitely some time that passed between season 1 and season 2. So I would say a year, maybe 2 years max since the end of Revenge of the Sith for this show. We don't know when this epilogue takes place. We might never, but it was just something, again, so beautiful about it.
Exactly.
It really got me. And again, I was just like Hunter. I was like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready for this.
We were all Hunter in that scene.
But there's just something beautiful about them being able to live out their lives on Pabu together in peace. I'm sure they went on some adventures. I'm sure we'll see them at some point in the next show, ? But to have them mainly just stay there in peace and not have the Empire going after them consistently. And just seeing an older Hunter, it got me. And part of me did want to see the other members of the batch there, to get to see Wrecker and Crosshair as well. But to have it be Hunter and Omega as this last scene and have that's been like the central relationship throughout the duration of this show.
Yeah.
And have them have that, you know, father-daughter moment at the end was beautiful. And like we said, we had Tex goggles in Omega's ship, and
it was so cool. And like
so
the outfit was very Rebels themed as well, like the show Rebels. Like I loved the kind of like the look with the hair and the kind of like the practical kind of jumpsuit and stuff. It was very cool. And I think, like, as we said,
bandana in her hair too.
She had the bandana. She had element. I think if we were to actually go over the costume, there'd probably be elements of each of her brothers, like apparel, just discreetly there throughout. But like, as you said, I think what was great about this was that this scene was just first and foremost about Omega and Hunter, and tying off that like Hunter confronting that character flaw of his, but also like just this emotional goodbye to Omega and to the rest and to the show in general. And it was that first before it was any kind of tease for the future. Like, yes, obviously there's a vague tease of like, oh, we're going to do more stuff with Omega. She's joining the rebellion, so she's probably going to do more stuff. There's probably going to be more animated shows that explore that. She probably, I would be very, very, very shocked if she does not show up in the live action shows.
Ooh,
and
you think
is
so?
Played. Well, yeah, like and also be played by like Keisha Castle Hughes as well, because like even more so now with that look, I feel like that they've definitely set Keisha up to play Omega in live action going forward. I hope to hear more of Michelle Ang in animation. That would be great. But in terms of like the look visually, I think Keisha Castle Hughes is just like, if you don't go with her, I'll be very surprised for like live action Omega.
I still am. I'm still pretty confident that she's going to play a role in the next animated show.
Yeah.
I just don't know if it's going to be time skip Omega or like the Omega we know in this show. Maybe a nice in between.
I think an in between, because like I wouldn't be shocked if like the next animated show is like an interim thing. It might even combine the Clone Resistance and the Path. I mean, I would love.
That's what I think it's going to be.
Imagine if the clones were involved in starting or helping with the hidden path, like them sheltering and helping to protect the Jedi that they themselves helped kill and make a turn the galaxy against. That would be a really cool that would be a really nice little bit of long form storytelling to have the clones sort of make up for the sin that wasn't really theirs, but they did anyway. Like it would just be it should be very nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can segue into this conversation now of where we think the next show is going to go. And I'm with you there. I think it's going to be a mix of the Hidden Path and Rex and Echo's continued story with Emerie. I don't know. Again, I'm assuming Rex is going to be the lead character. He might not be. It might be someone completely different, or new characters. But I'm assuming the trio that we see at the end of this finale are going to be main factors in that next show. I also think Ventress is going to play a big role in that, which is why I think Path is going to be a thing. And hopefully I can finally be right about this damn Quinlan Voss prediction I've been doing for 3 fucking years.
That's the thing. Yeah. Because like there have been so many teases of like the path and the hidden path and what they're going to do with it. Like it was set up in Obi-Wan. It then further explored in Jedi Survivor, which was a nice touch. You've also got like the inclusion, like there's mention of it in other things. I think it just would be really cool to explore that some more and have maybe we get an origin for Tala in the story. Like I could see Indira Varma coming back to do a voice role like set prior to Kenobi, or maybe even it's post Kenobi, and we get some more stuff like with, I mean, I don't think it will, because I think they'll want to keep it earlier. So we'll get characters like Quinlan. We'll see the genesis of Quinlan's involvement with this. We'll see Ventress. Maybe Ahsoka also gets involved. I could see her. She's been in her Rebels era. She's mysterious enough that I could see her being involved in that.
That's why I think it's going to be a little bit after Bad Batch season 3, and I think it's going to focus on that. And I do think, kind of like how Ahsoka and Rex showed back up in Rebels after Clone Wars, I do think we'll have the Batch as like recurring characters, like kind of like how Rex was in this show, where they show up once or twice a season.
Yeah. Like not enough to overwhelm the narrative.
Show. Yeah.
But
they'll tag along for mission, or it's like, oh, we got to go to Pabu and help them out. I do think Omega might have a slightly bigger role.
Yeah.
Especially if it is time skip Omega, I think she's gonna be like the equivalent of what Ahsoka was in Rebels. Of like she's not a part of the main cast, but she's like still a very important character. And again, I could be dead wrong on where I think this is all going, but I think we know 2 stories that one is we're pretty sure is happening. One we're like it makes sense to continue it. Yeah,
it makes sense to continue.
Yeah.
Also, I have to mention him. You know, we still don't exactly know how Hu Yang evaded the Empire for so long, because like my big concern about him for so long was that Palpatine would have him destroyed, because a droid that builds lightsabers for the Jedi has all this knowledge about the Jedi would be a real pain in the ass for Palpatine. So you could literally do a whole story about Hu Yang escaping the Empire and like meeting Ahsoka again, because they're already acquainted by the start of the show. So she's either always had him traveling with her, or they met sometime in between her like time on Malachor and her recruiting Sabine as her Padawan, which again, that's a story that needs developing really, which would be cool. And Kanan, I think, isn't Kanan's name on the wall in Obi-Wan? I think it might be. I think either Caleb Joom or Kanan's name is on the wall. So
here's
Kanan
another character that could show up if it is about the path. Barriss. Because of the last short.
About a friend. She said about a friend.
And
that surprised me.
The thing that she did in the last Tales of the Empire short was very Hidden Path-esque, of helping out this Force-sensitive child escape. Now, if it is, I'm assuming, just making sense of the timeline, I'm assuming that last, I almost called it a skit, the last short we got was post Kenobi, which would have to be 10 years after Revenge of the Sith, at least, because Lynn gets redeemed and
Ling.
she's still in the Inquisitorius in Kenobi. So it has to be after that. But
I have to button my lip because I have so many Fourth Sister thoughts, and I can't wait to Tales of the Empire
that
recap.
second short could have been 5 minutes after Revenge of the Sith. So there's still plenty of room for Barriss to redeem herself, and she could play a role in the show, because again, it feels like a lot of the stuff they've been doing in animation is like it's got a purpose. It's got a long-term goal of, we're gonna, continue telling these stories over multiple projects, kind of like how we are with the Mandoverse.
Yeah, maybe Delta Squad show up in the
like, yo, what the fuck?
Like,
you killed Scorch.
Yeah, they find Scorch and he's still alive, and then the writers are like, "Psych, this was always the plan," and we're like, "Was it though?"
It wasn't. Nope. You know who's not showing up in whatever the next animated show is? Sid. I never have to see that character again.
I mean, I don't be too sure. I could see them do it. I could see them bringing her back
until she shows up in like the next comic run as like when she was still working with the Jedi, and I'll be like, God damn it.
like she has to reluctantly like help out anyone on the hidden path, and it's just like a whole like either panel or a shot in it if it's a show of like every single character giving her the bombastic side eye.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't even think Cavan Scott or Charles Soule could make me like Sid. So that'll be your challenge. That's
the High Republic writers made us like
Sid, rock. If Sid is in the fucking High Republic, I'm done with Star Wars. It's just it's been good. It's been a nice 20-year plus obsession.
I love to see you kind of luxuriating in the fact that Sid was nowhere to be found in this season. It was great.
Just a Dexter Jester type of character. Where it's like, yeah, actually, she was alive during the High Republic. It's like, no, stop. Yeah, but no,
Sid is the one constant in the Star Wars galaxy.
It's like the new R2 with 3PO cameo where they gotta be in everything. It's like the new thing is just Sid shows up in every anime.
Yeah, like James Mangold's Jedi Prime episode. There's like a bit where the Jedi need materials for their like proto lightsabers, and there's like she's like, "Hey, I got the materials. Just you just gotta like do a mission for me.
I got materials all right for you." No.
You have so much material, but thankfully,
I sure do. Yeah, you've given me so much material the last 2 years, Sid. I hope I never see you again.
It wouldn't be a Bad Batch season 3 recap without me like repeatedly trolling you about the possibility of Sid.
She needs to never show up again. I would love that so much. Just don't. If you're like, again, like when they're picking for the next show, like picking their characters to show back up, like how the Martez sisters showed back up in Bad Batch. I implore you, Jennifer Corbett, Brad Rao, whoever's working on the next show, if you're like, you know what, let's have Sid show back up for an episode. Just take those thoughts, just throw them out. Just don't do that.
Just give it to someone else. Give it to another character. There's so many characters. Like give it to Max Rebo or that one little guy, that one little flea guy who like just like we saw his uvula in the camera in Return of the Jedi. Yeah,
give her
about that guy.
Give her the Newt Gunray death if you're gonna show her again. That's all I ask for.
Just like
speaking of Max Rebo,
CX2 finishing off Sid.
This is completely off topic, but I can already tell that whoever Baby Max Rebo's name is in Skeleton Crew is going to be one of my new favorite characters.
My hype for Skeleton Crew is just in the details
by that image alone
recently.
Yeah.
Like the details I've learned about it since have just like skyrocketed my I was fairly muted on Skeleton Crew as a show, not necessarily from like the plot, but just like in terms of like anticipation, and my interest in it has immediately gone up with like the kind of filmmaking craft they're going to bring to it, which is just awesome. I can't wait for that show now.
You know what I just realized, going back to Sid, is I was like, oh, give Sid a death like that one farting character in the R2 arc that we covered when we first
Yeah, like
started.
Ganapt.
Yeah, and I realized that's also
They're both-
fucking Trandoshan. Two of them.
And they both have the surname Perlman.
Two
Like,
of them.
How does that work?
Two of the characters we despise the most in our lore here at the pod have been Transoceans, and I just made that connection now. I'm like,
We need like a T-shirt of like the two of them, like
Yeah.
like just like some kind of like symbol of like the characters we don't there are characters you love to hate, and then there are characters you just hate, and it's these two.
it's like Perrin, Sid, and him are like the three, and Tim, fuck Tim, are like the four that we have that are just. So, anyways, the Bad Batch season 3. This finale was amazing.
It really
I
was.
love it, and I just I want to go back and watch the show from the beginning and see how much it impacts me, like with the context of the whole show. Now, and just going back and watching those episodes again. I want to get to do that at some point because I loved my time with these characters. A month has passed and I'm still not ready to say goodbye to them. I'm like Hunter at
Me
the end. I'm just holding on, even though I know we have to let go. But again, Star Wars animation has won my trust. So whatever that's been the case for years, but whatever they decide is our next show, I'm confident that they're going to deliver, and I can't wait. I think, I have no inside scoops or anything. This is just me predicting. I think probably around Comic-Con D23, because I think there's a D23 this year. But around that time period, I think, is when we might start hearing about what our next show is going to be.
Yeah, that would be cool.
And then maybe we'll get that next year or the year after. Because I think Bad Batch was a year after Clone Wars Season 7. So they've been fairly consistent about having some type of animated series going. Yeah, it was. So
it was 2021. Yeah, so we had it like pretty much immediately afterwards, and we first heard about it literally during that Investor Day thing, like in the middle of Mando Season 2. So yeah, we'll probably hear about it soon, I would wager. Like, they've been keeping their cards close to their chest because they obviously didn't want to say anything and give away the game that this is actually going to be a happier ending, and we're going to see Omega go off and fight in the rebellion. But yeah, I'm just really impressed again. Like we said, just the guts to go for a happier ending and to have that just. Yeah, it's just a really lovely thing, and to have it be like against the just cap off this much darker show, exploring more mature themes of like PTSD and fascism and control, and how people can have their free will stripped away from them, and what it's like to try and find purpose in a galaxy that is like in a world that has forever changed. When the world that you used to know is gone, how do you figure out who to be in the new world going forward? It was just a really nice to have Star Wars come through with its optimism. If you have people, if you find people, if you're kind and you find people that you love and care about, and you're able to put your trust in, and they're able to put their trust in you, then yeah, you can. It doesn't matter what you're going up against. You will be able to overcome any obstacle, and that's a very kind of lovely message, especially with how not to like get too much into real world stuff, but how divided the world is currently, and how much regular negativity we see on social media, and the way like algorithms and often companies and powerful individuals like to pit people against each other and manipulate people to fight and argue about stuff. It's really lovely to see a show like this, especially from something like Star Wars, which often gets so hotly contested with debate and toxicity and discourse. It's so lovely to see a show like this end with such a lovely, heartfelt message about kindness and togetherness, and how that is such a superpower, in such a cruel world, and it's such a beautiful thing to find and to nurture. I just, my hat's off to the creative team for doing that. I just fantastic finale.
Again, I echo everything you said. It's a tremendous finale. It made me feel so much for these characters and make me so happy that they did get this ending, because it was earned over the course of this show. And we went on such a great ride with these characters.
We did.
It was a great final season, in my opinion. I think it is my favorite of the three. Season 2 and season 3 are very close, but season 3 I just thought hit on so many great notes, and it did what great shows in stories like Star Wars should do, which is it focused mainly on these characters, which I loved, but the other appearances felt important for the like. Every character, we had the one exception that we talked about, but like every time they brought back a character we know, it felt important. It didn't just feel like, hey, cameo just for the sake of cameo. It felt, and that was the case, I think, for the majority of this series, is every time they brought back a character we know, it was to add to the story. It's like, hey, we're going to bring back Senator Chuchi. We're going to bring back Cutler Queen. We're going to bring back all these characters, but it's going to help the story, and it's going to help further develop these characters that we know. And that continued on in this season. And it also gave us glimpses and ideas of things we might see down the line with both these characters and the supporting cast. And I've loved personally just covering this show. We weren't around when season 1 was airing, so that's going to be fun to revisit when we get to the Bad Batch.
Yeah.
After we in 3 decades finish the Clone Wars. Gotta slow down on these shows, Lucasfilm. We got a whole series to get through still. But I'm very excited to the fact that it worked out that way, that we got to see the latter 2 seasons covered on this show, and that we'll be able to go back and revisit season 1 a couple of years down the line with fresher eyes and watch that season from a different point of view of knowing where things go. That's going to be very intriguing for me. And again, it gave me every member of Clone Force 99. It gave me Crosshair, who I've connected with so much, and Omega, who has just instantly become one of my all-time favorite characters. I love these characters, and I hope it's not I hope we see them soon. I hope it's not the very last time we see them. I don't think it's going to be. But for now, so long, and one last time for old times.
99, eh? Nice touch.
And yeah,
it really was a nice touch this time. They did it.
It really was. Thank you. And yeah, I'm getting very tired, so I think we're gonna wrap this. To pull the curtain back, this is for me at least, the latest we've recorded this show, because right now it is currently very early in the morning for Donovan and very late at night for me. So this is not normally when we'll do this show. But now I know how you feel when we go along certain times. I'm like, oh my God. But thank you for tuning in for our Bad Batch Season 3 coverage. We apologize that this is almost a month late, probably over a month late at this point. I don't remember when that episode aired.
You've got like a month's worth of our thoughts.
We've been able to marinate on this for a month plus and finally talk about it. So thank you for tuning in for all of our coverage. Again, we'll probably get around to doing a full season discussion at some point like we did with season 2. But we're going to, again, how I think we're going to do things is obviously Acolyte starts on Tuesday or Wednesday. I think it's Tuesday.
So close to it. It's so weird.
We will be putting our primary focus while the show is airing on the Acolyte, but during certain weeks, if we have an extra day or two, we will get out what we missed throughout May. So Tales of the Empire, something related to the Phantom Menace, and if we have time to get into Clone Wars, we can do that, and then also greater coverage on season 3 as a whole. Maybe we'll get a guest for that. We shall see. We shall see. But it's a very exciting time for us, and it's a very exciting time to be a Star Wars fan because I'm very excited for the Acolyte. And as we talked about, we have a feeling that we haven't had in a while, a couple of years, which is having a new animated show on the horizon and not quite knowing what that's going to be. So I'm very excited to see what the future brings us. And again, thank you for joining us on our adventures with Hunter, Wrecker, Omega, Echo, Tech, and Crosshair. I don't think I forgot any of them.
Oh, no, you got all of them.
Okay, thank goodness. So thank you. It was great. Donovan, where can everyone find you as we wrap things up here tonight?
You can find me on Twitter at Donovan Mead, TikTok at Donovan McComish, Instagram and Threads at Donovan_McComish, and Blue Sky, DonovanMead.bsky.social. You can also, I'm also a question writer for Star Wars Inner Galaxy Epic Confrontations, and I'm also a writer and producer on Star Wars SWEF, which is Star Wars Edited Fiction, where we write a series of interconnected short stories, fan fiction that is, we try to adhere to what is canon in the Star Wars galaxy. We try to like fit our own stories in and not mess with the canon too much, but we also like to import a few things from Legends that we like and just think would be cool in the stories. I have done one story that came out in 2022. It is called Scars of War. And you know, very kind of lines up with this show quite nicely in terms of like themes. It is about a clone called Blister that escapes the Empire after Order 66, and 5 years later has a peaceful life, relatively peaceful life on the outer rim world of Kivo, disrupted by the arrival of a Jedi survivor named Shar Kun. So if you like Star Wars and pain, sifting through PTSD and all that kind of stuff, then definitely give it a read. It was fun to write.
Absolutely. As for myself, you can find me all socials, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at Starlight Andrew. You can follow the pod on Twitter at For the Repub Pod and on Instagram and TikTok at For the Republic Pod. If you want updates on what we're going to be posting and what's coming in the pipeline, definitely make sure to check out our socials there. Subscribe to our YouTube For the Republic podcast and check us out on all of your audio platforms. It really helps support the show, so thank you for that. Yes, the Acolyte is upon us, and we cannot wait. So we have a lot coming soon. June is going to be hopefully a great month for us as we catch up on what we missed. And just look forward to what we have coming out in the summer, because it's going to be a fun time, and I'm very much looking forward to what is coming soon. So thank you again for joining us, and until next time, may the Force be with you, always.